So I was told by the General Secretary that part of the reason why you weren't appointed to the shadow cabinet was because you have resigned from your position over there in Portmore.
Well, if that's what the General Secretary told you, any further inquiry on that would have to be taken up directly between yourselves.
Have you resigned?
Amen.
Impasse in the Southboro Division of St. Catherine East Central Constituency. Part 2 of a two-part series with constituency chairman Raymond Pryce. This is Cover Story Highlights. Let's get after it. But before we do, I invite you to subscribe, like, share, and comment on the content. The announcement of the shadow cabinet by party leader Mark Golding sparked some curiosity regarding the exclusion of Pryce. At a function attended by General Secretary of the party, Dr. Dayton Campbell, an inquiry was made by me about Pryce's exclusion from the shadow cabinet. Dr. Campbell's brief response was that Pryce had resigned from his position as chairman of the St. Catherine East Central Constituency. This explanation, in my mind, raised questions about Pryce's future role and influence within the party. Listen to how Pryce responded to the question of his resignation.
So I was told by the General Secretary that part of the reason why you weren't appointed to the shadow cabinet was because you have resigned from your position over there in Portmore.
Well, if that's what the General Secretary told you, any further inquiry on that would have to be taken up directly between yourselves.
Have you resigned?
Amen. You. There's an impasse that we hope is being resolved. We had the tragic loss of the councillor of the Southboro Division, the late Ainsley Tyson Parkins, and therefore a candidate has to be identified to replace him. There were two applicants. A recommendation came with respect to one from the region. Polls were done. Both applicants in the polls showed would have won, and so there's no doubt where that is concerned. But a decision was taken with respect to an applicant. Now, let me step back from this a bit. My assignment in Portmore, specifically East Central St. Catherine, is of 3+ years vintage, right? There are persons with a greater depth of knowledge and experience. One person recently described Leon Thomas as being among the threads that create the fabric of Portmore, and described Fitzjackson as the very fabric, the physical manifestation of Portmoreism, if there was such a movement. And information came to my attention from members of the communities regarding an aspirant, and that information, in my view, is substantial. And that information has been shared, it has been escalated to the leadership of the party, and an internal process, not yet concluded based on my information, has been commenced. I did state that without further, I would have to reconsider my role, because the one thing in this world that is binary, if nothing else is in the modern world, is integrity. And this is Jamaica. We communicate more culturally than any other society perhaps does. This is the country of, see smoke without fire. This is the country of, if I not so and nearly so. This is, my own grandmother would say, if you never did over there, your name couldn't be called. So why would so many persons who have lived in the space and know the player to have this opinion and it not be considered?
Do you think the things you heard and like you said, most of the information come from the very fabric of the constituency? Do you think it is sufficient to disqualify that person, whoever he is?
I think so, yes.
Did you submit a formal letter of resignation to the party secretariat?
So, when I mentioned that I am an active member of the party for the period of time I have been, when I joined the party, the president was PJ Patterson, succeeded by Portia Simpson Miller, succeeded by Peter Phillips, succeeded by Mark Olin. It might seem strange to many, and on some days strange to me, that over that period I would have had the honor of direct communication with each of those presidents. I have never revealed the details of that conversation. So to respond to your last question, there's an impasse. Decisions were taken and the communications shared as to the need for it to be poured into and perhaps resolved. And that process is ongoing. So there's no need for me to go in specific detail as to the contents of correspondences between myself and any individual, especially at the leadership of the party. If that becomes a public matter, the source shall not be me.
Well, the General Secretary told me that you resigned.
And as I stated, you would have to seek further clarification with the General Secretary. There is an issue. I communicated about an issue. I was not the only one that had done that. So I don't think to particularize it. This is never about Raymond Pryce. Very few things I do are entirely about me. My choice for my meal this evening might be entirely about me, and sometimes it's not even, because you live in a family, you live in a home. The decisions are sometimes a community-based decisions, even within the home. I am not that person that's going to say, I'll take my marbles and go. However, I am very attuned, perhaps more than many would have anticipated, to the fact that in the community of Southboro, we have a high per capita reading. I've never done the official statistics, but it would not surprise me if within those communities you have a higher number of justices of the peace than in another community, perhaps say in Silo in St. Elizabeth. And I have never gone to interact with a community member and heard, I hear that you are walking with such and such a person, don't come back to my house, until recently. So the matter had to be escalated. It just had to be.
A lot of prominent people in the East Central, and in Portmore generally, leadership, the municipal corporation, and the sitting MP, Fitz Jackson, they have indicated that they would have supported you to run in the Southboro Division. Have you ever considered doing that?
Initially I did not, but I have considered it, yes.
Okay. So what are the drawbacks now as it is? I understand that there is this impasse that you have described, and vaguely as it is. And we don't have to go there, because I have made my own judgment. The fact that they have not put somebody else in the constituency, it suggests to me that the idea of resignation is immaterial. Right? So what the question is it the impasse as it is now that is preventing you from taking up the mantles of that because when you
to be clear, there's no vacancy, There is no vacancy, and the mantle has never fallen. And oftentimes I go back to, I'm an Anglican, I'm not a Catholic, but I did go to St. George's College, and at the time I was at St. George's College, we still had Jesuit priests who taught us subjects. And my physics teacher in sixth form, Father Larkin, famously started every class with a sub-lecture that had nothing to do with the course, nothing to do with physics. And one of the things I remember one morning, he placed a bucket on the table in the lab and gave everybody a cup and says, take out a cup of water, and just a cup, and then show me the space that is left from where that cup of water came out. And he said, if you are unable to do that, then always remember your importance, personal importance, is not so great as to disturb even a bucket of water, let alone the configuration of the universe. So even if because of, I don't even want to say it, especially with the situation that led to the vacancy, but even in that situation, the work goes on, because the work is also being done by the community leaders in any constituency, and certainly in East Central St. Catherine and Portmore. So the mantle was never fallen. We still do what we're supposed to do. It's a recognized constituency. We have concluded all assignments as per the political work program, and that is ongoing.
But clearly there is an impasse, as you rightly described there, though, and it has to do with personnel. The feeling is that you would be the ideal person to unify that constituency by offering yourself to run in the constituency. It could bring about some unity. And so the question is, if the characterization of the person that the party, because the general secretary told me that he has done several polls in there, and every poll that was done, that individual has come out on top, and that was disputed by other senior members of the party. What the general secretary told me was disputed by other senior members of the party in Portmore. So that in itself, there is a contradiction there.
Well, I'm not au fait with those specifics. I really am not. But what I will say is, remember, East Central St. Catherine is of recent vintage. It first existed just prior to the 2011 general elections. And it has shown, as all of Portmore does, that the constituents and the community members will vote for Party A in this election and Party B in the next election. The history of the constituency, or within the PNP, or the reality of the PNP organization within the constituency, has included turmoil and instability at one point or the next. Recall that the first representative was Arnaldo Brown. He was successful in 2011. He was unsuccessful in 2016. The party then named the sitting mayor of Spanish Town, Vice President Norman Scott, as the caretaker. Then came Winston Delahaye. The truth of the matter is, I was only considered for the constituency upon the reality of Winston Delahaye's resignation.
And that was Cover Story Highlights. Tune in again next time as Cover Story examining the impasse Pryce spoke about. In the meantime, subscribe, like, share, and comment on the content.